Grace and peace to you from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm recording this e-note because I want to update you on information from our annual conference and share with you where our own administrative council and board of directors are regarding information about disaffiliating from the United Methodist Church. So I'm going to do that, and then I want to also share with you where I am personally and why, and then share with you the discernment of our board of directors and administrative council in their most recent meetings. In 1972, the first statement about homosexuality was included in the General Church Book of Discipline. It affirmed the sacred worth of all persons. Also, it put restrictions on who could or could not be ordained. And since 1972, this issue has been debated at every general conference. The way things get added or changed in the Book of Discipline is a lot like the way things get added to the law code in our own country, democratically, politically, messily. Because General Conference is a legislative body, it's often impossible to predict what will or not be changed at General Conference because, just as on the floor of Congress, changes could be made up until the moment something passes or does not pass the body. Only the General Conference can speak for the United Methodist Church, and they meet once every 4 years. In 2016, the General Conference called for a special session of General Conference to deal with our statements about human sexuality, especially as it pertains to LGBTQ persons. The special conference did not ultimately result in changed language at that time, but it did reveal that a process of separation was likely necessary. Between 2016 and 2019, a group of UMC leaders worked with a mediator, created what they called a protocol for grace through separation that was to have been presented at General Conference in May of 2020. It would have given $30 million to Wesley Covenant Association to help fund a new Methodist expression, and it would have created a process where those churches desiring to become a part of that would have had a process to move their affiliation and their property. Now, again, that was created after 2019 special session, and then to have been presented at 2020 General Conference. Well, 2020 General Conference did not happen because of the pandemic. It was postponed to 2022. And in March of 2022, the General Conference regulatory body decided that conference could not happen in 2022, primarily because those who would need to travel to the U.S. for the conference were experiencing tremendous delays in passports and visas because of the pandemic. And it was felt that it would not be appropriate to have a general conference where all the delegates were unable to participate. So when it was announced that General Conference would be postponed until 2024, Wesley Covenant Association announced that it would be launching a new Methodist denomination called the Global Methodist Church, and that denomination did officially launch on May 1st, 2022. Now, in 2019, at the special called General Conference, the General Conference added a paragraph 2553, that provided a window of time, which is from then until 2023, and an outline of a process for disaffiliation for those churches who desired to disaffiliate from the United Methodist Church because of a deep conflict in the denomination related to issues of human sexuality. Every annual conference board of trustees has had to work out specifically what would need to happen in their own conference. And in our annual conference, North Carolina Conference, that information was released to us in mid-May of 2022. Let me stop here and say I know this is messy. I know it's in the weeds and very detailed. And that is because it's a legislative process. But I want to be very transparent with you about how that process works and what the background is. So that's how we got to where we are today. And now I want to walk you through the process. And that information is on our conference website if you want to look that up as well. There are two pathways to initiate an inquiry for disaffiliation. One comes from the Board of Trustees. We call that here our Board of Directors. The other is from our Administrative Council. So the first step would be for either of those bodies to request a called church conference. At that called church conference, 2/3 of those present and voting would need to vote for disaffiliation. There are also financial provisions that would need to be met, including a church must be current on apportionment payments and also make an additional 12 months of payments. There is also an amount determined by the General Board of Pensions, not determined by our annual conference, that every disaffiliating congregation would need to pay toward the general church's unfunded pension liability. That formula is determined by the general board, and any outstanding indebtedness, such as equitable compensation or loans from the conference, would also need to be paid. The disaffiliating church under paragraph 2553 would keep its real property, and we would note that is a significant departure from the Book of Discipline, where it is understood that all real property is held in trust for the denomination. And then if all of those requirements are met, then the disaffiliation would be voted on at annual conference. So those are the rules that are in place until the end of December 2023. It's possible that in 2024 there will be another attempt for a different kind of agreement. The framers of the Protocol for Grace Through Separation at 2019 have indicated that that protocol will not be going forward. So if there is a different agreement, it would be something new, and I've not seen anything like that. All right, so that's the background and the process. I want to take a minute to tell you where I am and why I am where I am. And that is to say, as I think you've heard me say before, I will be remaining a United Methodist. It has been my home since 1980. Like some of you, I have not always agreed with all of the stances that are the official position of the United Methodist Church as they are voted on at our General Conference. But I have always firmly been able to affirm the United Methodist Church Articles of Faith, our Wesleyan theology, and our connectional way of being church. I'm grateful for the Big Tent United Methodist Church, where people of different political convictions, theological interpretive lens, different views on how to read the Bible, a wide range of passions about how and where to live into mission, from schools to orphanages to healthcare for prisons, from ecumenical conversations to digging wells in Liberia, from creating universities to hospitals, where all of those things have us sharing the gospel in ways that change people's actual lives as they live them here and now, not simply their spiritual lives for heaven. Both are important, but the United Methodist Church is unequaled in its ability to change people's lives around the world here and now for Jesus. Since I've been in the United Methodist Church since 1980, I have always been a United Methodist with other United Methodists some who think like I do about issues and some who do not. I've always benefited and grown in my own faith because of those interactions. Now, it has taken me about 20 years to get here, but I can truthfully say that I am at a place where I can, with a very honest heart, say that I do not wish any ill will on those who need to depart the United Methodist Church. I pray God's blessings on them. But I'm not one of them. I believe our best future lies with the United Methodist Church and with those who want to continue building a church that is open and welcoming for all. So I am staying United Methodist. Now, I want to seek to lead you as your pastor and to speak to you as your pastor. I've sought to be transparent with you about the process of disaffiliation. I've said to you that I believe my best future is with the United Methodist Church. But as your pastor, I also want to say I believe our best future is with the United Methodist Church. By saying that, I do not mean that I believe we are all of one mind or would need to be or would automatically be of one mind about human sexuality issues. Rather, based on the evidence of my 3 years here so far, I sense that there is not an overwhelming sense that our church should organize primarily around having agreement on the issues of human sexuality. I simply don't see it as a driving issue for us in terms of what we give missional priority to, what energizes our conversations or hopes or aspirations for our church. I do not think, in fact, I know we are not all in agreement about human sexuality and what the church needs to look like in regards to welcoming and affirming LGBTQ persons. But I nevertheless think that there is a consistent spirit that we should not separate from one another over this. Now, that's the presentation that I made last week at our administrative council. And at the end of that time with the administrative council, there was time for questions and discussion. I had done the same for our board of directors a week earlier. Both groups voted unanimously not to pursue disaffiliation, and so therefore to remain United Methodist. So I want to say a couple things about that. One is that the current process we have from General Conference and our annual conference Board of Trustees begins with either the Board of Directors or the Administrative Council requesting a charge conference. As neither group has discerned that to be our way forward, it's not initiated. Now, it may be that in 2024, the General Conference will pass a protocol that does call for every local church to hold a vote. But at this time, that is not the process. If it becomes the process, we will certainly visit it at that time. I know as your pastor that in our congregation we have people who disagree with one another about matters of human sexuality. This decision doesn't alter that reality. I think it does say that as a church, we do not sense that having agreement on these or any other matters rises to the level of needing to separate from the denomination. By taking this decision as leaders, we hope to provide clarity so that our church's life and ministry can move forward with a sense of who we are as United Methodists. And again, if and when the General Conference, let me say that this way, when the General Conference meets in 2024, if it does give us additional processes or protocols for local congregations to act on, we will, of course, follow those processes or protocols. But the one I've outlined to you just now is the one that is available to us at this time. Church, I know this is a lot of information, and it describes a complicated process. You can find that process outlined so that you can read through it yourself at our annual conference website, nccumc.org. Additionally, I'll be holding a town hall meeting on Thursday, July 7th at 7 p.m. in the chapel to answer any questions you might have. I believe our best future is with the United Methodist Church, and I am grateful to be your pastor with you in this season. Grace and peace to you.